This book completely changed my relationship with my ADHD and made me a much happier and more productive person. If you could only read one book on ADHD, make it this one. Hi, my name is Emily, and I was diagnosed with inattentive ADHD last year at the age of 27. And ever since then, I've dived headfirst into learning about my ADHD and how I can work with it. In this video, I'm going to break down the book ADHD 2.0. I like to call it the ADHD Bible. We'll break it down into two main sections. One is the science behind ADHD, and two is the practical advice that you can implement in your life right away. By the end of this video, you'll finally understand why your brain works the way it does, and more importantly, how to work with it instead of against it. Before we get into the meat of the science, let's talk about what ADHD looks like. The authors mention that it's useful to think of ADHD as a set of contradictory or paradoxical tendencies, like the lack of focus or the ability to hyperfocus, or the tendency to procrastinate and the ability to get a week's worth of work done in 2 hours, or a wandering mind that comes up with the most creative and innovative ideas ever. And the list goes on and on. So those are some telltale signs of ADHD, and they're fun little contradictory tendencies. Now let's look at what's happening inside your brain. I really wanted to highlight this section because I know there's so much damaging narrative in the world around ADHD and neurodivergence. You've probably wondered, maybe ADHD isn't a real thing and you're just lazy or you're a bad person. Trust me when I say I know how you feel. That's why I think it's so important to start with the science, so hopefully we can convince you that ADHD is a real thing. There are actual complex neurological stuff happening inside your brain that causes ADHD. To explain this, we'll need to look at the default mode network, which we'll call the demon network, and the task positive network, which we'll call the angel network. These are two major brain networks. You can think of them like clumps of neuron in your brain that lights up when you're doing any activity at all, like frying an egg or tying your shoelace or writing an email or just daydreaming. Without getting too much into the weeds, think of the demon network as your autopilot brain. It's what when you sit down to write a report, you're all of a sudden thinking about, what do I want for dinner? Or did I reply to that text? Should I get a cat? But the demon network is also what lets us function on autopilot, making routine things feel really effortless. Like when you're driving from your work to your home and you realize you have no recollection of how you got there, but you're home safe and sound. And think of your angel network as your focused brain. The angel network is what lets us get into a flow state and do deep work. Like you're hyper focused on a project and it seems like time disappeared. However, the angel network is also what causes us to hyper focus on the wrong thing sometimes. For example, you start researching a random topic on Reddit and 3 hours later, you're like, whoops, I completely ignored what I was supposed to do. The important thing to point out is that the demon network or the angel network is not all good or all bad. We need them for different things. And like Professor Oak said, there is a time and place for everything. And thanks to advancements in science and technology, we can actually use fMRI technology to see this in action. We can see which networks light up when you're doing certain activity. In neurotypical people, they have an easier time toggling between the two networks. For example, when they need to focus, they turn on their angel and they can mute their demon. And when they're done with their task, they can turn off their angel network and go to their demon network for some much needed rest and relaxation. The important difference with ADHD brains is that toggle switch doesn't work very well for us. The second thing is that even when we're in our angel network, your demon doesn't turn off. So it's still there trying to get your attention and lure you in. This is why when you sat down to write that email or that report, you started thinking about what you want for dinner. So by now you might be wondering, how do I not get pulled into the demon network next time I'm trying to focus? Well, the solution that Dr. Hallowell and Dr. Rady propose is actually very simple. Because you are so good at getting distracted, you have to use your ability to get distracted against itself. This might be hard in the beginning, but try to notice the next time you're in your demon network. And when that happens, do something random or funny or active, like jumping up and down, tying your shoelace, or fry an egg, or play with your cat, or water your plant. Just anything to reset that system so you can try the angel network again. And the more you do this, the more you strengthen that muscle and your ability to toggle that button between the two networks. and it'll become easier and easier. Now that we understand how ADHD brain works, the real question is, how do we work with it? Let's look at some practical strategies that can help you be more productive. Contrary to popular belief that your habits and your behaviors are fixed, like if you procrastinate now, you will always procrastinate. In reality, your toggle is really much more like a muscle that you can train. Just like how you can do squats to get a bigger booty, you can train your brain to get a more productive brain. So let's get into some of this training. I broke down the author's recommendations into 3 key categories. The authors emphasize that your environment has a huge impact on how well you function. An ADHD-friendly environment should be structured, low stress, and supportive. At home, that can look like clear routines and reducing clutter. At work or at school, that means having structure without being micromanaged and being in a culture of trust. I know that we don't always get to choose our environments, but the key thing is for you to become aware of what works for you and what doesn't, and also learn to advocate for yourself. We heard it a million times: eat healthier, sleep more, exercise, meditate, all the things. Unfortunately for ADHD, these aren't just nice to haves. They are non-negotiables that will help you feel better in every way. Food fuels focus, so stable blood sugar means stable energy throughout the day. Look into supplements. I found that omega-3s have really helped my ADHD. Exercise, even 10 minutes gets those dopamines firing. Get good sleep. Sleep literally resets your brain and it boosts your focus, memory, and your mood. And try meditation because it's like a mini sleep session except you're awake. Even just 5 minutes is good. So the takeaway is that don't sleep on the little things. They might feel like small changes, but they will have a huge impact on how you feel and function every day. Medication is the most powerful tool that everybody fears. The authors say that although long-term, everyday healthy strategies matter the most, in the short term, medication provides the most effective and immediate relief when prescribed and taken properly. Personally, I've tried medications like Concerta and Vyvanse, but I found the side effects to outweigh the benefits. So right now, I'm focusing on the long-term strategies, but if in the future there's a chapter of my life that requires intense focus, I'm definitely open to trying medication again. And I know on the other hand, for so many people, medication has literally been life-changing. The authors talk about how they see this all the time where people get so emotional or they cry after trying medication because it's the first time they've felt relief in their life after struggling for so many years. So I share both sides because there really is no right or wrong. There is only what works for you. At the end of the day, all the science and the advice are super important, but none of them matter as much as your relationship with your own ADHD. When you stop seeing ADHD as something to fix and start working with it instead of against it, everything becomes easier. You will naturally become a happier and more productive person. What I learned since getting diagnosed last year is that ADHD isn't about trying harder. It's about understanding yourself and building a life that works for you. So be on your own side and be kind to yourself and trust that you can thrive just as you are. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments if you found it helpful, and I will see you next time.